Hi, welcome to Bromley Baptist Church Bite Size. In the last couple of Bite Size talks, I've used the theme of life on pause, which is what it feels like in lockdown at the moment, and we've looked at how Psalm 40 could help in those instances. But what if you don't feel like your life is on pause at all? What if you feel like your life is actually on fast forward, racing along at a speed that scares you? Or perhaps you're a key worker who is working with fear and stress and long hours. Or perhaps you've lost somebody to the illness or been very ill with it yourself. Or perhaps you're just living in fear of going out. There can be many reasons why people might be feeling pain at the moment. Well, Psalm 40 is very much a psalm that can help you at this time. In this psalm, David, the writer, begs God to help him because of the troubles that he's in. This psalm is the basis of the song 40 by U2. And this Irish band really knew what it was like to grow up in a country where there were troubles. Troubles without number surround me, says the psalm. Be pleased to save me, Lord. Come quickly, Lord, to help me. Have you ever cried out to God like that? Cried to God to help you? Well, God expects you to do that. The Bible has many, many instances of where people cry out to God for help. That's what God wants us to do. Like a toddler pulling on his dad's coat for attention. God wants us to be relentless in trying to get to talk to him. And unlike a human parent, he isn't going to turn around and say, "Stop it, I'm busy." God will never stop us from trying to call to him. He isn't necessarily going to stop the situation. He isn't going to stop the stress, the long hours. He isn't going to stop the suffering always. But he will be with us right the way through it. As many of you know, my father died just before the lockdown. He had heart failure. And I'd like to say thank you to many of you at the church that prayed for me at that time and sent me messages of support. They were very much appreciated. And it was a really painful time for us and still is. We feel like the psalmist felt, surrounded by trouble at certain points. My dad's illness, and then his eventual death, and then having to plan a funeral that had none of his friends present. They were all really painful things. And then on top of that, not being able to see each other and get together to help us through our grief was really painful. And yet in the midst of these times, I know that God was with me and was with us. No, he didn't stop my dad suffering and eventually dying, but I could see lots of small ways that God was at work. Little things that would happen and I'd think, oh, that was a coincidence that that person just turned up at that time. And I saw God's love through his people, showing us love and support. Psalm 40 says, I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. Now, it may not feel to you like you are out of the pit or standing on a firm place. You may feel very much as if you're still really going through it. But cry out to God. Ask God for help during this time. Waiting patiently doesn't mean like when we wait for a bus and we sit very passively waiting for the bus to arrive. It means being like David in the Psalms, calling out to God for help on a regular basis and looking for him in the midst of the trouble that you might be in. If this is the position that you're in, then my prayer for you is that you would feel able to seek God for help and that you would see his hand in the midst of what you're going through. God bless you as you seek him.